They say every day is for the thief, one day for the owner of the house. But ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, has reversed the role. It is now every day for the owner of the house. If you're involved in bribery, over-invoicing, or any shady deal, the day of reckoning has come. ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, is watching you. If you're reported for any corrupt practice, you'll be investigated, prosecuted, and punished. Corruption is harmful to our nation. Join the campaign against it by reporting any corrupt practice to ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Let we join hands with ICPC, make them better.
Let's make Nigeria great again.
ICPC, they want you.
I want to act for corruption.
Break the chain of corruption now. Don't give, don't take. This message is brought to you by ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Section 6B of the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act 2000 mandates the Commission to examine the systems and procedures of public bodies, and where, in the opinion of the Commission, such procedures facilitate fraud or corruption, to direct and supervise a review of them. In line with this mandate, the Commission, in addition to its systems study and review mechanism, adopted a new methodology for corruption prevention tagged Corruption Risk Assessment, otherwise known as CRA. Today on the program, we shall focus on the recently concluded Corruption Risk Assessment training for heads of anti-corruption agencies from the African Union countries, organized by the Anti-Corruption Academy of Nigeria, ACAN, the research and training arm of ICPC. Welcome to Corruption Must Go, ICPC's weekly television program. I am your host, Murna Barnabas Atiai. Also on our menu, we shall bring you updates on anti-corruption stories, character building drama, ethics and values. But first, let's join Joy Aja for anti-corruption stories.
Hello viewers, thank you for staying tuned. I am Joy Aja with Anti-Corruption Stories. ICPC has arraigned Dr. Jinga Mayo, the Executive Secretary, Christian Pilgrims Welfare Board, before Justice Nathan Musa of High Court 1, Yola, Adamawa State, on a 3-count charge for embezzlement. Dr. Mayo was charged for knowingly furnishing false return of the sum of 69.2 million naira received by him to pay committee members of the Adamawa State Christian Pilgrims Board for 2016 Pilgrims Operation in Israel. He allegedly did not pay them, but returned seemingly duly signed payment vouchers and acknowledgement receipts of the payment by each member of the said committee, contrary to and punishable under Section 16 of the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act 2000. The accused was also charged for conferring corrupt advantage upon himself and also for making false statements to an officer of ICPC. When the 3 charges were read, Mayo pleaded not guilty to any of them. It was on this ground that the prosecuting lawyer, Anas Muhammad Kulu, prayed the court to fix a date for trial. The defense counsel, J.E. Owe, informed the court that he had filed an application for bail before the court. Justice Nathan Musa, after listening to both counsel, granted the accused person bail in the sum of 30 million naira with one surety who must be resident within the court's jurisdiction. In a related development, ICPC has charged one Mr. Hart Victor Nonso to court for allegedly forging a diploma certificate in public administration of the Federal Polytechnic, Bauchi. The Commission, in a 6-count charge filed before Justice V.M. Venda of the FCT High Court, Maitama, Abuja, observed that Mr. Nonso forged the certificate with the intent to procure a fake transcript from the Federal Ministry of Education for the purpose of facilitating his visa application with the United Arab Emirates. The alleged offense, which was committed in 2018, contravened Section 363 and punishable under Section 364 of the Penal Code Law, Cap 532, Laws of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. The accused pleaded not guilty when the charge was read to him, as his counsel, Mr. Chijioke Kanu, pleaded with the court to grant him bail. Though ICPC did not oppose the bail application, Justice Venda ruled that the accused be remanded in Kuje prisons until ruling on the bail application, which was to take place at a later date. That is all on this segment. Corruption Must Go continues with Myrna. Stay with us.
Corruption not in my country.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, madam.
My name is Alero. I am not sick. I just need you to help put your stamp on this medical report. I want to tender it at my office as a sick leave. I'll pay 10,000 naira.
Ma'am, that is impersonation. I'm not a doctor.
Oga, be like say this English no go pay. I go increase the money to 20,000 naira. I beg. You know, if I give you that 20,000, as you wide, so if it still help your condition more. So you don't say you spread well.
As I spread like virus, I'll be.
You talk.
Come out! If person come your hospital, talk to make you give am fake medical report, make you go take collect sick leave. Talk and say no, na corruption. Not in my country.
Stop corruption now.
Corruption not in my country.
If you're just tuning in, this is Corruption Must Go. The CRA methodology within the Nigerian context was developed by a team of consultants in 2011 with input of ICPC and some other agencies. CRA is a corruption prevention tool which is used to identify systemic weaknesses that allow corruption to thrive, and it develops mitigation measures for such weaknesses. Since that time, ICPC has deployed the CRA in a number of organizations and sectors in Nigeria. The appointment of President Muhammadu Buhari as the 2018 anti-corruption champion for the AU placed a responsibility on Nigeria to assist other African states to develop effective strategies to fight and prevent corruption. In discharging this responsibility, a training on CRA was organized recently for heads of anti-corruption agencies in African Union countries. The Provost Anti-Corruption Academy of Nigeria, Professor Shola Akinreadi, tells us more about the methodology and justification for the training.
The corruption risk assessment is a relatively new corruption prevention methodology aimed at complementing enforcement as a corruption prevention tool. It was first deployed in Nigeria in 2011 by the United Nations Development Program that developed the tool. In 2016, that methodology was domesticated. The training of assessors was domesticated in Nigeria when the UNDP supported the Anti-Corruption Academy of Nigeria to domesticate it. We had support to train people, the curriculum and everything. So the essence is to help governments, particularly for public sector agencies, to detect corruption processes or areas that are prone to corruption in the processes of agencies of government and other systems. And the whole essence is to look at what could be aiding corruption and then take steps to mitigate such. But it's not just to, when people go on corruption risk assessment, it's not so much to catch thieves or anybody, but it's to ensure that whatever predisposes an agency of government, an organization, an office to corruption, they're detected and steps are taken to prevent them. That is the summary. I would take that at two levels. First is that training was conducted primarily in support of Mr. President's declaration as the 2018 anti-corruption champion for the African Union. That was the basic thing. We organized it to support the initiative so that Mr. President is impacting not just the war against corruption in Nigeria, but in the continent. At the time, he was the anti-corruption champion. So that was the first thing. But before that, as far back as 2015, even before the domestication of the CRA training in the academy, we had received overtures from other West African countries. And from 2016-2017, we have been in discussion with ECOWAS to try to run anti-corruption risk assessment training for other African countries. So we were discussing that when the initiative to develop this in support of Mr. President's agenda came up. So it was easy for us to cohere the two. So rather than limit it to West Africa, we now did it as a sensitization training for other African countries, for all African countries, and in which ECOWAS took a prominent part. In fact, they were very prominent in mobilizing support within the sub-region to ensure the attendance of countries in the sub-region. And the good thing about it is that what we did in December was a sensitization training. It was aimed at getting the heads of national anti-corruption agencies of African countries to understand the importance of CRA as a tool for preventing corruption. So they can then go back home and then conduct the full training and develop faculties in their own countries, so that on their own they can then be conducting risk assessment of public sector agencies.
You're still watching Corruption Must Go. Speaking at the opening ceremony of the event, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari observed that the fight against corruption was a battle for the soul of the different countries in Africa, adding that the CRA being championed by ICPC was a good tool for ensuring the success of the battle. He called on the participants from AU member countries to domesticate the CRA template, stressing that the training could only be meaningful if the assessors were put to work back in their countries.
It is in this context of building robust preventive systems that we must understand this initiative, which aims to train leaders of anti-corruption agencies in the African Union by deploying corruption risk assessment methodology for corruption preventing in our countries. Corruption risk assessment seeks to identify corruption-prone processes and procedures in organizations and recommend appropriate remedial steps. The methodology places a premium on prevention as an effective complement to enforcement in the war against corruption. In 2016, through support from the United Nations Development Program, the Anti-Corruption Academy of Nigeria acquired the capacity to conduct training on corruption risk assessment. Since then, the Academy has conducted a number of these trainings to showcase the growing appreciation of corruption risk assessment as a tool for preventing corruption. The Anti-Corruption Academy of Nigeria has received a request for the training of corruption risk assessors for ECOWAS countries from the ECOWAS Commission in Abuja. Therefore, the training starting today is an opportunity to extend the benefits of this methodology to other African countries, and by which it is clear that we have not taken our appointment as anti-corruption champion for the continent for the year 2018 lightly.
Thereafter, the President presented the report of the CRA conducted by ICPC on the Nigeria e-government systems, namely GIFMIS, IPs, and TSA. Some of the participants who spoke at the opening ceremony told us about their expectations from the training.
First of all, it's a great honor to be here, to be invited to such an event, and really our expectations about this training is to develop, to enhance our experience, knowing that risk management is a special approach that we are ongoing in Morocco in many fields, and I hope that this training will help me and help us to develop more our approach, our experience, our knowledge in this field, and to develop and to diffuse this knowledge in my country, Morocco. Thank you very much.
I expect to learn a lot on how to train trainers to be carrying out corruption risk assessments back in our country, Kenya. I expect to learn about the curriculum which caters across all institutions, which is actually applicable. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's special that we have in South Africa, as we have our own tools and methodologies in fighting corruption. We currently are conducting vulnerability sector risk assessment on various sectors of the state organs, and currently, as we here, want to see what are the tools that are available that are used by other countries, especially Nigeria, to benchmark with other countries, so we can see what can we take back from home that we can enhance our processes and tools in terms of risk assessment for fraud and corruption.
The CRA training held for 3 days at the old banquet hall of the Presidential Villa witnessed paper presentations by certified and experienced corruption risk assessors drawn from within and outside the Commission. The presentations were done in a bilingual format using English and simultaneous translation in French. High point of the training was when the participants shared their experiences on the different methods employed by their various agencies in fighting corruption in their country.
Who can change that culture? Is it the government? Is it the church or the mosque? Is it the religion? Is it social gatherings or community trainings? I'll be very happy, because if it is a matter of culture, it's not something which can be raised at once. It has to take a process, and I hope all our social actors have to deal with it, because I do believe in each country they have how they support, they tolerate or they react against the corruption.
And what I would like to add is probably what I didn't see there is one of the tools you can get through that as well is to request the ethics risk registers in those entities. So that basically is the culmination of the ethics risk assessment, where you would have actually gone through a process which we would call ethics risk survey to identify the gaps or shortfalls in the ethics conduct within the organization. It's one of the processes where you identify ethics risk or fraud risk, other than call them fraud and ethics risk. So once you have that, obviously you will put strategic interventions that we need to implement, which are those mechanisms we spoke about, the whistleblowing policies, code of conduct, disciplinary procedures, and all those types of things. Yeah, but that's the point I wanted to make. The ethics risk register is very important.
from the Kingdom of Eswatini. My friend, thank you for your presentation. You know, but of concern to me is what is the consequence of these assessments? Are they of the findings of just opinion findings, or do they have enforcement of law? You know, what happens in instances where the organization that is being assessed disputes the findings? How do you curtail that scenario? And if the findings come, how do you compel their legal consequence? Especially if I'm running my own business and I'm in the private sector. Is there going to be any consequence, legal consequence? Because this exercise seems to be very expensive. Because you will remember, my friend, that on top of other measures, there could be auditing, external auditing, and then this comes this corruption risk assessment. Of what consequence is it?
Some of the foreign participants expressed satisfaction with the training, saying they would replicate some of ICPC's innovative initiatives in their countries to boost their anti-corruption drive.
Everybody today knows that the African Union has strategically nominated the President of the Republic of Nigeria as the African champion for pushing the anti-corruption agenda in Africa, having declared 2018 as the African anti-corruption year. And we all know that Nigeria comes from the background where it used to be, unfortunately, not so well known for its corruption. And this, you will remember the time when the United Kingdom was hosting the World Summit on Corruption, where the Prime Minister of the time, that is of Britain, was briefing the Queen about who was attending the summit, and two countries were mentioned there. Nigeria happened to be one of them, and if today we see Nigeria turning the corner, surely that's a great boost for Africa, and so we feel quite privileged that Lesotho, among all the countries attending this training, to be here.
Public common goals are for all people, not for special individual to get them in their family, in their own pockets. I do believe that with this training spread for all African countries, it would bring a plus, because some African people, they do believe that common goals, public service belongs to those who are in charge of. They don't know that these are common, their own. If someone steals from the safe of the state, he's stealing them. In some countries, they believe that things which are for the public, they belong to nobody. Instead of they belong to everybody, everybody should protect them.
Well, I must say I'm very impressed with the organization of the training. I think the quality of the facilitators has been excellent. The content, I think it's a course that is relevant to what we do back home. So overall, I think I'm satisfied with the way the course has been conducted.
There were 67 participants drawn from 27 AU countries, including the host country, Nigeria. Remember, you can always get in touch with us on our social media platforms as shown on the screen. You can also watch the program on our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/ICPC Nigeria. That's our package for today. See you again next week.